Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Grant. I am the chairman of the Energy Sustainability and Resiliency Committee, and welcome to our webinar on building health and wellness. This committee is made up of a number of members: Barry Feinberg, Jay Greeley, Kevin Kelly, Nina Kovalenko, Bob McSound, Paul Abramson, Dom Pico, Sandy Steed, Mike Bertolo, and of course, Pat Handley, our guide and advisor. Please make it a point to reach out to these folks when you see them in meetings and thank them for all the work they do in the background. Now I'd like to recognize our annual sponsors. Our gold sponsor is First Onsite Restoration. Our silver sponsors are City Fire Equipment and AJ Squared Security. Our bronze sponsors are Belfort Property Restoration, Colliers, Columbia Property Trust, Federal Business Centers, JLL, Plant Companies, Public Sewer Service, Spinella Electrical Contracting, and ServPro Team Majeski. And here's a brief outline of what we're going to be talking about. And I'll introduce each of the speakers just before their segment. Glenn Anachino is going to talk about why certified buildings. And then Bina and Daniela are going to talk about what LEED are, what WELL is, and what FitWell is. And then we're going to wrap up with getting the job done by someone, Glenn, who's been through this before. And we're going to wrap up after that with a roundtable with all the speakers on nuances to actually doing this kind of work. And then we're going to save 10 minutes at the end for questions. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll aggregate the questions in the chat and boil them down to eliminate any duplicates, and I'll moderate them at the very, very end. So let's begin. We have with us Glenn Anachino, RPA, and Vice President of Property Management for Ivy Realty. Mr. Anachino began his career with Ivy in 2007. He is responsible for the daily operations of Ivy Realty properties in 8 states. This includes budgeting, tenant relations, capital improvements, preventive maintenance programs, contract maintenance, property transitions, dispositions, and oversight of property policies and procedures. From 1988 to 2007, Mr. Anachino served as Regional Property Manager for Mack Kelly Realty. Prior to that, he was a property manager for Burroughs Development Incorporated and owned and operated a full-service landscape construction and building services company. Mr. Anachino is a member of the New Jersey and Philadelphia chapters of BOME and received Toby Honors for Best Building of the Year and Best Corporate Facility. So Glenn, thank you for being with us today, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate you putting this together today. This presentation has been a culmination of multiple committees at BOMA, New Jersey, and we had this on our radar for some time to have this as a topic for a webinar. So I'm delighted to be part of that conversation. My direct involvement is kind of a result of going through the process of certifying a building. And want to talk about kind of what we went through as an organization to get there. The execution of this is total team effort. I credit my team, all those involved in successfully managing this project. I am not the expert, but we have experts here today that are going to take you through the steps of what it takes to certify a building and property and LEED, WELL, health and safety, and FitWell. It's a lot of information. We're compressing this into 1 hour. So that was a bit of a challenge. We'll do our best. Certainly, we're always open to questions and answers and comments today and in the future. So feel free to reach out to us. So why certify? During the pandemic, it was kind of a panic. As a company, we were looking to how do we position our business, our staff, our assets, try to understand what to do in an unprecedented time. Jerk reaction, everybody was shutting everything down, sending everybody home. What we knew as property management experts was that buildings to a degree are living and breathing things. As property experts, we know that mothballing a building is not a focus. We should just be looking at managing these assets in a different way. It kind of meant thinking outside the box. We took it upon ourselves to inform ourselves, attend BOMA convention in Boston, try to learn as much as we could on the health and safety side. We felt the holistic approach was the way to go, and that was going to be our focus. Now we had to go back and convince our partners. We had to go back and convince our lenders, our ownerships, our vendors, our tenants, that this was the right path. In the end, we felt we kept everybody whole. We kept our people working. But we also made, and as a result, the assets a better place. We made them more sustainable, safer places to work. And we did so without having to spend a lot of capital. So how did we do this? We'll look at it from a lender's perspective. We deal with private and institutional financing. Everybody has that common goal of asset value. That is their focus. So bringing to them a form of validation we felt would create value. As a result, and what we learned is that 20% of Fortune 500 companies all agreed, and certification and validation was an important part of this process. We then started to focus on the leasing side and tenant retention. What is the dynamic? What are the tenants looking for? The brokers. And these changes, and as it concerns health and safety, became now a forefront. Questions were, what are your cleaning protocols, your sanitation procedures? How are you handling air quality, water quality management? Emergency preparedness programs. As management, it's our job to ensure that prospects that arrive to our doorstep have the best impression possible. Validate, execute, create written policy. Fact over fiction. This all became forefront in creating an environment that folks would understand and appreciate coming into the door of our property. From a tenant's perspective, prior to the pandemic, we always surveyed our tenants and generally would get a response of about 30%. How is the building? How is your space? What would you like to see done? All the things as it relates to being a good informative property manager and creating a well customer service oriented environment. Post-pandemic, we resurveyed our tenants. It went up to 70%. What did we learn from that? Well, we learned that people want a voice. They want a platform. They want to be heard. So when we asked tenants, back to work, coming back to work, what are they excited about? It was, face-to-face meetings, understanding that we can start to collaborate, see each other in person versus over a video screen. We asked them what their concerns are, and most said safety in the commonplace, safety in collaboration areas, work environment cleanliness, workplace density, air quality. Those things became precedent. A recent example I'm going to throw out there is the current wildfire situation and the complaints regarding potential air contamination and smoke. I would like to share with you an email I got from an employee of a tenant who directly to us stated that she was happy to be in the building. She felt best being in the building versus being outside or working from home or another office. So again, it validated kind of what we thought was the right method and path to move forward. We can challenge ourselves with what's an acceptable standard, whether it's LEED, WELL, ASHRAE, CDC, and others. They all provide a necessary strategy, a guideline to achieve some degree of confidence that what we're pursuing is the right thing. What owners and tenants will accept may or not make the difference. As a result, what we learned was that by validating the property, we can gain their confidence. That sticker on the door meant something. And the next step was to take it through the process and see where we would end up as a result. Both my vendors, my employees, our ownerships, all had concerns. What if we don't succeed? I had to basically put my head on the line and say, with confidence, I think we will succeed. We follow a basic building practice that BOMA lays out for us. I believe in it. We follow it. And those guidelines, I think, would help us achieve the goals that we needed to achieve when it came to certification. With that said, we went after it. Let's go. And the process began. So I'm going to take it on to our experts to kind of talk to you about what that process looks like, what are the costs involved, and how to get there. I can follow up then with how we managed to get through the process and get the job done. So I'm going to open it up to our first expert today, Bina.
All right, Glenn, thank you. Great kickoff, setting the tone. And here we go with the experts. I'm going to now introduce Bina Indelicato. She's a PE and a lead AP, and she is with EcoEvolution. She's the founder and partner, has 20 years of experience facilitating sustainable change as a professional engineer and lead accredited professional with building design and construction and operations and maintenance specialties. She has helped diverse organizations from major corporate campuses to small local businesses to large sporting arenas earn certifications like LEED, WELL, and Energy Star. Bina has earned her bachelor's and master's degrees in environmental engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Bina, looking forward to what you have to say. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you all of BOMA for inviting me to speak to everybody today. I am excited to go through all of these projects, and as Glenn said, I worked with Glenn on the LEED and WELL certification for his client, for his property. So we'll kind of talk through what we did or what's involved with LEED and WELL certification. So I'll talk quickly about, give an overview of both of the certifications, and then kind of do a little overview of costs for certifications, which I think is always important to keep in mind when you take on any project. So next slide. So I'm sure most of you have heard of LEED and somewhat familiar. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It's been around since the late 90s, so it's probably one of the original green building or building certifications that are focused on sustainability. And I like to say that LEED is kind of like a nutritional label for a building. It talks about what went into the building, how much energy it uses, how much waste it generates, how much water is being used, and kind of gives you an overall view of how green the building is. And it looks at both planetary health, like environmental health, the impact of a building on the environment, but it also includes people health. So how healthy the building is for the people in it, as far as air quality, noise, cleanliness. So it's two parts. And then whereas WELL is more just about the people health part of it, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So kind of WELL came out of LEED. So LEED's the original kind of overarching certification system. So next slide. So LEED addresses the complete life cycle of a building. So most of you have probably heard of LEED in the context of a new construction project, whether it's a core and shell or just the interior fit out or a whole new construction. They have certifications specifically for schools, for retail areas, healthcare. That's all for the construction phase of it. What kind of building materials you put in, what kind of equipment you put in, is it efficient when you're constructing? Do you recycle? Do you manage the water pollution in the area? All of that. And then there's a second certification that's for the existing building for the operations and maintenance of the building. So that has more to do with how you clean the building, how you operate the building, because you could have the most energy efficient equipment in the building, but if you're not operating it well, you're still wasting electricity. How your employees feel about the building, if it's, you know, as far as noise and daylighting and all of those things. So my focus is actually on this presentation and just in general. I do work with both kinds of LEED projects, but in the case with the project that I worked on with Glenn, it was an existing building that was not going through any kind of renovations or construction. It's just we looked at the operations and maintenance of the building. So that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about here. So next slide. So the operation and maintenance of LEED looks at 5 different areas: energy, water, waste, transportation, and the human experience. So the human experience part of it is kind of the people's health, and the rest of it is kind of focused on environmental health. And for each of these, in order to earn certification, you have to start tracking your energy use, your water use. You have to track your waste generation, or conduct an audit to 1 day or 2 day audit that looks at how well you're recycling or how much of the waste you're actually generating. And then for transportation, you know, part of your building's footprint is about your carbon footprint, and a big part of that is how your occupants come to work. You know, if you're located in some place pretty remote and everybody has to drive their vehicles over 50 miles to get there, it's not a very sustainable site versus being someplace which is easily accessible. So that's why this is part of the LEED certification. They're trying to encourage people to either be located in some place that's easy to get to, or offer, you know, encourage carpooling, encourage people to use electric vehicles, that type of thing. And then the human experience element includes doing some air quality testing, as well as asking the people in their buildings how they feel about the cleanliness of it, and the sound, and the access to daylight, and all that. So that goes into the certification as well. So next slide. So kind of this is the steps. So I'm not going to go through each step, but just to generally tell you, you know, if you wanted to start a LEED project, the first thing you do is register the project with the certifying agency, which is the United States Green Building Council. Then you start reviewing your energy data and your water data and see if you are, you know, or if it's feasible to reach certification. You have to achieve a certain level of efficiency, and if you're not even close to that, then, you know, the next step would be to go back and start do an energy audit and implement any changes and updates that the audit found. You would do a waste audit. You do all the different parts that you need to do, the indoor air testing. You'd start tracking your water and waste, and you put all that information into this portfolio called ARC, where it tracks your data and then gives you a score for each of these categories. You also develop policies and plans, like green cleaning policies and purchasing plans. And then once you have all of that together, you submit your application to the United States Green Building Council. They review it. They come back to you with comments. Once you've addressed all their comments, you earn the certification. But then it's not a one-time deal. You have to continuously, annually keep certifying or renewing your certification. That's true for WELL and LEED. And the process is similar. You know, I just wanted to walk you through it, like what is really involved. It's the registration, and then you have to do the heavy lift of the work to demonstrate you're complying with all of their requirements, and then submit an application. So that's the third-party review. That's the, you know, validation you're getting. It's not that they're saying, oh, no, we trust you. Just, you know, they do a third-party review. So next slide. So this is kind of a screenshot from the ARC platform, like I was telling you. So I don't know if you see that in the corner, you see kind of that 71, which is the LEED plaque pretty much. And you can see that it's scored out of those 5 categories. And in each of those 5 categories, energy, waste, water, transportation, and human experience, it generates a score once you put the information in. You put your utility information into this platform, you put your waste information in, you conduct a survey through this platform. It gives you a link and you send it out to all your employees, and depending on how your employees respond, it generates this score. So on an ongoing basis, you can see month to month if your score is going up, going down, you're doing a better job recycling, your energy use is going up or down. It's they call it a dynamic plaque. Your score is continuously changing, so you can track over time how you're doing. Next slide, please. So WELL is similar to LEED, and I don't think I mentioned this, but you guys are probably all familiar with LEED having multiple steps of certification. LEED has certified silver, gold, platinum. WELL has bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So, same steps. You register, you put together your documentation, you move on, you show your performance and you get your certification. But then at the end, you do continue to recertify. So next slide, please. So in WELL, there's two different types of WELL. We pursued WELL Health and Safety Rating System, which was a rating system that came out of the overall WELL rating system during COVID, and that focused more on COVID-related things. So this is the kind of the parent WELL certification, the original one that looks at all of these different categories. Whereas LEED was looking at waste, water, energy, transportation, human health. This is 10 different categories, and it includes things like nourishment, what kind of food you're providing to your employees, sound, thermal comfort, movement, if you're giving your employees a chance to move and be active during the day. So it's very a lot more credits involved, a lot more different things that you can do to earn certification here. All focused on your employee health, basically, how healthy your building is. Next slide, please. Now, health and safety, which I told you was born out of the kind of during COVID, really focuses on 6 of those categories, basically. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar to, they're kind of born out of those 10 categories. And it's really focused on sanitation, how prepared you are for an emergency like a pandemic, what kind of resources and services you're providing to your employees, what kind of health care you're providing them, the opportunity to work from home, and then air and water quality. You're testing your air and water to make sure it's safe, and you're engaging with the people in your office, and then any other innovative things that you've done. So that's what we pursued with Glenn's project, is this health and safety rating system. It's definitely still very much geared towards COVID response, but it's still, interesting. And it's a easier kind of lift to do WELL health and safety versus the overall WELL. Next, please. And some of you actually, we were joking before this call as to who these people are. Hopefully you recognize some of them: Lady Gaga, J-Lo, Robert De Niro, Michael B. Jordan. The only reason I put this on there is because I think they actually did a huge advertising campaign for this certification. So you'll see this emblem at malls, at stores, at a lot of places, and they've really pushed this certification heavily during, as buildings were opening up, and they were trying to encourage everybody to come back to certify that they are practicing, good sanitation and and have been testing the air and whatnot before people start returning back. Next slide. So this one kind of gives you an overall cost. All of them, these are fees that you're paying for the certification. So this actually doesn't even include fees that you would pay for a consultant to help you put this together, or even third-party energy audits that you would have to do, or waste audits, or air testing. So this is just the cost of certifying with the agency. And all of them usually have like an initial registration fee that you pay. And then once you're ready for certification, all of them tend to be, except for health and safety, require or based on the square footage of your building. So, overall, I would say WELL health and safety is probably the more affordable of the 3, and then LEED O&M, and then WELL version 2 definitely tends to be a little bit more expensive, but it requires a lot more testing and a lot more verifications of your airspace and your water and a lot of other things. So it's a little bit more of an intensive certification. Next slide. I think that's actually the end of my slides. So yeah, I'm gonna end there, and then I will take the questions at the end and pass it back to Jeff. I'm not hearing Jeff. I don't know if anybody else is having that trouble.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, my mic's on mute. Now I'm back. Yes, thank you, Bina. Very well done. Appreciate it. And I did put a few questions in the chat box, so we'll aggregate those and others at the end. So good, good. All right, next on the on deck is Daniela Zandi. She's a JLL sustainability consultant. Daniela is a lead green associate, a Fitwel ambassador, and true zero waste advisor. She supports clients in establishing and implementing strategic sustainability programs for global real estate portfolios, offers design guidance to project teams in pursuit of built certifications, and advises on compliance with local laws and leadership in corporate benchmarking. She first worked at a boutique engineering consulting firm, then Code Green Solutions, and then at Gensler, a global architectural and design firm, as a sustainability specialist. Daniela is currently a Master of Science candidate at Columbia University School of Professional Studies in Sustainability Management. She graduated magna cum laude from Cornell with a BS in Environmental and Sustainability Sciences and Resource Economics. So Daniela, welcome. We look forward to what you have to say.
Thanks, Jeff and Bina. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. I'm going to speak a little bit about the Fitwel certification. We can move into the next slide whenever you're ready, Jeff. So Bina just did, a pretty comprehensive job talking about WELL and LEED. So different from LEED, which is leadership in energy and environmental design, Fitwel is a certification which primary focus is to promote occupant well-being. The certifying body for Fitwel, which is the Center for Active Design, partnered with the CDC actually in 2019 to create this new certification standard. As a result, all of the features in the Fitwel certification are evidence-based from the CDC in some, scientific studies. And finally, the last nuance about Fitwel is that there are no prerequisites for the certification. As you may be familiar with LEED and WELL, there are prerequisites. So this might make Fitwel certification a little bit more accessible and reduce the cost of compliance due to more flexibility in which features you pursue that are more or less appropriate with your project. Next slide, please. And this is kind of just a snapshot of the different types of projects that are eligible for pursuing Fitwel for their spaces. So commercial interior spaces, single building or multi-tenant buildings, and multifamily residential. Either design or build projects are eligible for pursuing certification, meaning if the project is in design or if it's already built and you'd like to kind of retroactively certify the space, you're able to do that for both. For either case, the certification is valid from 3 years of the certification date. So a recertification effort would be required to be initiated within 3 years of that first date. And in the next slide, these are the 7 health impact categories that Fitwel uses to categorize the 65 features that a project is eligible to pursue for their space. And the 12 sections that are allocated for each of these 7 categories are listed here on the right. And I can give some examples, but these 65 both design and operational strategies are really focused on prioritizing human health and wellness for the occupants. So some examples may include policies such as cleaning policies, which I believe Bina had spoken about a bit, and which products are used for cleaning the space, but also some design strategies such as the stairwell, how the stairwell is leveraged, how occupants are encouraged to use the stairwell, either with signage, and it also touches upon some healthy food standards. So some of these categories are similar to WELL. I'll get into the specific differences between Fitwel and WELL in a couple of slides, but just to set things in context, Fitwel is often referred to as a lighter version of WELL. Because it hits similar categories, but it is a little bit less comprehensive in some ways. Some more examples I'll provide on this slide is Fitwel certified properties also help improve community health. There's a focus on the project's context within the larger community. It reduces employee absenteeism. It supports social equity. And it also may improve nutrition and Fitwel habits of building occupants, because a space can be awarded points towards having things like a wellness room, outdoor space, things like that. Okay, we'll go into the next slide. So this is a snapshot of how a project can get recognized for certification. Fitwel awards a project between 1 star to 3 stars based on the point value to the right. As I mentioned, there are 63 evidence-based features, but each of them are weighted differently depending on the evidence behind it. For example, in one category, a mother's room, or called a lactation room in the certification in the feature, is awarded 4 points, but a quiet room is awarded 2 points. So this allows the project team some level of flexibility to kind of cater the certification towards the project's larger ESG goals. And on a similar note, in the transportation category, there are 4 or 5 features related to transportation. So depending on how well connected the space is to public transportation, there's a really wide range of points that can be awarded. So having poor transportation doesn't necessarily preclude the project from getting certified straight from the outset. Moving to the next slide. And I recognize that I'm not pausing for questions, but I believe we're doing questions all at the end. So I'll get through. I have about 3 more slides. This is a pretty straightforward snapshot of what is required for the certification. So what you can expect for required documentation from the owner is official statements, which are statements on company letterhead that certify that the features are in fact in place. Sometimes policies. These may be policies that are already existing from HR, or they could be best practice policies that Fitwel provides that the project team can implement. Plans, so design plans, or if design plans aren't available, if it's a built project, sometimes those features get certified through photographs. So those are all the documentation components. And another thing that Fitwel boasts is it has a relatively quick turnaround for a review process. So project teams can expect end-to-end a 12-week review process. Once the project is submitted, the Center for Active Design, the certifying body, responds with preliminary comments to the project team, similar to LEED, similar to WELL. And the project team has the opportunity to offer clarifications based on what was submitted. But that's it. There's only that one clarification period. Then there's a final review. And then as a result of the final review, a numerical score and star rating between 1 Fitwel star to 3 Fitwel stars is awarded for the project. And on the right is a table that might be a bit small to read, but basically it just lays out the fees for certifying a Fitwel project. So there is a one-time registration fee for every project of $500. And beyond that, depending on the size of the project in square footage, there are corresponding certification fees that range from, if you can't see it, $6,500 to $11,000 per 50,000 square feet of project space. I'll just note that oftentimes project teams do leverage the help of consultants to bring a project through to certification and to assist in compiling and checking all the documentation. So these fees that are listed here on the right do not include any consultant fees. They're just fees for certifying the project with Fitwel. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So just taking a step back and reiterating some of what was said earlier in the presentation, why prioritize health and wellness for spaces now? Obviously, we're all aware of some, like health issues that have been occurring with the wildfire smoke. And so when occupants feel as though their space is conducive to their health, there is a corresponding dollar value to that, which is a little bit of what's represented on the right. So we spend 80 to 90% of our time indoors. That's about 22 hours per day. So our buildings have to work for us. And what a either Fitwel certified space or WELL or LEED space can offer is peace of mind for both tenants and employees, increased satisfaction, increased retention, attracting, especially millennials. So for the marketability features of such certifications on the right, there was a study done in an independent white paper that 78% of millennials see workplace quality as important when choosing an employer. And these certifications also boast increasing employee productivity and obviously increasing indoor environmental quality performance. Okay. And I just wanted to make a note on this slide that in our experience at JLL, we offer sustainability consulting for, a wide range of portfolio services. And we at our team have seen the success of these certifications, as well as a noted increase in its popularity. Because certifications like these oftentimes speak to larger ESG strategies. It's not just a focus on the E or the S or the G, but it's pretty comprehensive on all three. And it's definitely a step in the way of clients getting to their sustainability goals. Okay, and the last slide. This is a table that either myself or Bina can speak to, just comparing some things between the WELL certification and the Fitwel certification. And I'll just make a note that this is the full WELL certification on the left, not WELL Health and Safety. So comparing returns on investment, verification periods, the timeline, the cost is a pretty big difference as well, industry recognition, and how it has evolved to respond to global crises like the COVID-19 pandemic. So Bina mentioned WELL Health and Safety was born out of COVID-19 from WELL. In Fitwel, there is something called the Fitwel Viral Response Model, which is a version of Fitwel that responds specifically to COVID-19 and is also a pathway for certification. So that's kind of the snapshot of all things Fitwel. And if anyone has follow-up questions, feel free to ask on this call, but also feel free to get in touch with myself or any member of our team, and we'd be happy to discuss further. I think my contact info is in this presentation.
Okay, Daniela, very good. Thank you. Thank you for a really good job with all that. I think I got it. Of course, I had the advantage of hearing it all before. That's great. And I'd like to move on to the next segment of our program, which is back to you, Glenn, talking about getting the job done. What went through your mind, through your process, your thought process in bringing to fruition your goals to get your buildings certified. So, Glenn, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks to our experts. Great job. We're a private company, small in nature. We don't have a sustainability officer or an ESG team to rely on to take us through a certification process. However, we knew we needed experts. We needed engineers. We needed consultants. We needed folks that can take us through the process. As a result, we went out and selected experts. We used resources that are available to everybody. We used BOMI affiliates. There's IFMA, IREM, SIOR, all have the ability to provide assistance and guidance to help find experts. We used our vendor relationships, talked to them about what we'd like to do and how to do it. They were helpful, and again, just going out and interviewing and working with general consultants that were familiar with these types of certifications, and started an interview process. At the end of the day, we came down to finding the individual that we felt had the experience. They had the professionals that they needed at their disposal when it came down to certain certifications, whether it was refuse or indoor air quality, and had the knowledge base that could take us to the finish line and succeed. End of the day, we needed somebody comfortable that had the same common goals that we had. And that's how we achieved and ended up selecting our consultants. It's then putting together your own team, getting your managers in place, getting them on board. We manage as a BOMA standard. So our team had a lot of information already at their fingertips, whether it was energy information, water as such. We track it all, we manage it all. As a private company, we pay a very close attention to every dollar. We also felt there was a benefit to combine both lead and well from a performance rating and from an economic standpoint. There's commonality with both, and as a result, consulting fees were going to be less to do both. We then developed our team. We included our cleaning company, our engineering staff, our HVAC contractors, property managers, facility managers, risk managers, human resources. We brought everybody in to talk through the process of what this would take and how to get there. We then created a database and tracked all the information we are gathering in order to get through the certification. This is very helpful at the recertification process, which I don't think anybody touched base on, but year over year, you can go back and recertify your building. So having this information and tracking this information is extremely beneficial. We performed regularly scheduled meetings. We checked our progress on a regular basis and created timelines to achieve goals. Get your ducks in a row. More is better than less. And therefore, we were able to succeed and complete the process. As a result, we found ROI. To this date, we're able to find return on this investment that actually paid for our consulting fees and all our registration fees when it came to lead and well. So there's things out there that were discovered during the process that actually helped us save money. So just to finish off, in retrospect, this became not only a confidence booster for our team and our tenants and our employees, but it also created a whole lot of thanks and somewhat thankless job. Morale went up. Those involved were rewarded as a result. We knew we were performing well. We just didn't know how well. Validation is everything. It helps get this through our system, through our ownership, through our investors, and creates a situation that is favorable when it comes to the employee base and a return back to work. We have exceeded expectations with our clients, and in a particular property, we're now seeing on a day-to-day basis over 800 employees come back to work. So we think we showed and proved their success in following and certifying your properties and going through this process. So thanks to everybody for attending. I'm open to questions and comments. Thank you.
Great, Glenn. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time out of your day, and everybody that's presenting taking the time out of your day. Time is valuable, and hopefully the value that you're delivering is going to be that much more meaningful to everybody attending. All right, we're at the point where we've heard from everybody, the owner, operator, consultants, and we're at a point where we want to take a look back and follow up with some questions and follow up on some concepts that might be meaningful to everybody here on the call. So I'll start out with it. I put some of the questions in the chat that popped into my head while we were speaking, everyone was speaking. And the first one that comes to mind is, how would you recommend that managers organize data systems to be able to continuously capture the data needed for these certifications, whether it's LEED, Fitwel, or WELL? The idea is so we don't wind up having to, I'm going to use kind of a dramatic expression, set our hair on fire to do a certification and get it done in 4 weeks or 6 months or whatever. There's the data already there, already they're ready for us. How do you recommend companies, have that continuous data flow and maintain that so we're not going crazy doing these certifications? So anybody want to take that? I'm open to suggestions.
I could jump in on this one. I mean, I haven't, as far as a tool to really use, I haven't really, the on lead O&M, the ARC tool is pretty much, a place where you kind of deposit all of that information, and you have to upload bills. So you really do need to start with looking at bills and uploading that information. My suggestion is more of doing it on a regular basis. So you're not like 3 years later going, can I have 3 years worth of bills? So I try to, with my clients, I'll ask every 3 to 6 months, hey, can I get the last 6 months of bills? And then just continuously keep that populated and stay on top of it. Otherwise it can really get crazy. And one of the tools that is actually used with Lead O&M is Energy Star. And I know that in New Jersey here, we're getting ready to require Energy Star reporting for buildings over a certain size. So I would say, if you use Energy Star to keep actually you can use Energy Star to keep energy and water and waste data regularly. That ties directly into the ARC portfolio, and you could use that data as well.
Oh, you say, Bina, thank you. You say ARC accepts bills. Like, what are you talking about? Like utility bills and
Yep.
waste hauling
So you have
bills,
to,
water
yeah, no,
bills?
yep. So electricity bills, water bills, gas bills, because you have to demonstrate, you can't just put any number in. So they require you to demonstrate proof that this is really how much your building is using, and not just a reporting thing. So you have to back up a lot of your data with actual utility bills.
So it's not
For
just
Lead.
a data entry in a database. It's actually a scanned copy of the bill or a PDF
Mhm.
copy of the bill is all part of the documentation process, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's part of they'll review. They usually, for the recertification, will only review a year's worth. So you could probably go the first couple of years with just putting the data in, and the year before you certify, you want to put your bills in. For Energy Star, you're just putting in data. You don't need to back that up with bills. So
All right, so it sounds like managers would be advised to, tap into the accounts payable department
yes,
and make sure that there's a process in place that these bills get siphoned out and put into a directory on a server somewhere so they
yep,
can later be uploaded for recertification, right? But then the data also need to be scraped off and put in a database so that I'm talking out loud here, stop me, but so that the manager can see if something is going off the
yep,
deep end or something as we're proceeding. So, okay.
yeah. No, that would be a great suggestion.
Okay. All right, good, good. All right, my next question is has to do with if somebody hasn't done this before and they just want to get started, like what would you recommend would be the most simplest way to get your feet wet with this? What certification first? Would we do lead, fit well or well, and then what would we do next? I know Glenn did a combination because he saw some synergies there, but somebody just starting out, what would we start out with?
I mean, Daniela probably has experience with all three. I actually haven't gone through Fitwell, but listening to her presentation, it sounds like maybe Fitwell is probably the more simpler. And then and then Lead, I would say, is more holistic, but compared to overall Well, I think that gets kind of much more detailed. So Well, health and safety, I think fits someplace between Fitwell and Lead, I would say. Danielle, you would agree, or?
Absolutely. I think it would depend on what the client's goals are. As you mentioned, for Lead O&M, for example, it collects hard data in the form of utility bills for tracking. For Fitwell, it's more soft data, so it's more on the HR policy side. It's a couple of surveys. So I guess the difference is the extent to which you'd like to engage your occupants in prioritizing and championing health and well-being versus really taking a focus on energy waste and water use reduction or monitoring through something like Lead O&M. And Well Health and Safety is kind of something in the middle of both. When we are in this like discovery phase with clients, we often do a feasibility study because leveraging a consultant to do a certification when that property might not even be eligible is kind of a waste of time and efforts. So we often recommend doing a light feasibility just to run through all possible features and taking a look at the design of the project, and then can collaboratively come to a conclusion of what's most appropriate.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Danielle. That's kind of the route we took, and just making sure we would be able to achieve the goals we wanted to achieve. So that's a great way to start, 100%.
All right, Good. Thank you. I've got a question probably, well, it's really keyed off what you said, Glenn, is that you found an ROI after going through this whole process with being and lead and well, you found a return on ROI. And I think you mentioned something about like in the process of examining your costs and the volumes of whatever energy or waste or whatever you're using, you found things that you would have otherwise not found. And I was wondering if you can share with everybody what it is that you found. If I'm reading you right, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there were lots of things, whether it came down to trash or just basic cleaning practices. There were some small things that were discovered. I think, though, the biggest thing, what we understood and found was on the HVAC side. Everybody was concerned about air turnover rates and making sure ventilation was working properly. We're setting air units at a specific static pressure. We've been running our buildings at 1.5. Being sure we have proper circulation, outside airflow. What we learned is we were overachieving. We did not need to run at 1.5. What we discovered is we could, and this was again built based on engineering to studies and AIQ protocols. We discovered that we could run on less static pressure and adjusted everything down to 1.2. As a
Okay.
result, no complaints, still had the proper airflow requirements, everything worked as it should, and we saved a boatload of energy. And as an engineer, Jeff, you could probably do the calculation more quicker than I could, but it's a significant number. And like I said, it paid for itself in a pretty much 3-month time period.
Yeah, it's not proportional, it's geometric. So, small changes in duct static pressure are immense changes in fan motor energy. And motors are roughly about 30% of a building's energy consumption. So, yeah, that's good job. Good job. That's a big find.
It was a great discovery. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I guess the message is, just going through the process of any of these certifications, there's, these nuggets of opportunity that just appear just because people are looking around and they just find things otherwise would never have found. So whether you get the certification or not, I guess we can expect that most people are going to find something that's worthwhile along the way. All right, my last question is, we've gone through the process of collecting the data, doing the audits, surveying the tenants, measuring air quality, doing everything for whether it's well, lead, whatever. We got the label, we got the certification. Like, what do we do next? How do we get the word out? What's the best way to maximize the value of what we've achieved? We put a sticker on the building, fine. What else do we do? How do we get the most out of our accomplishment?
So I can jump in just to initially say the amazing thing with LEED and WELL and probably Fitwell, they have a lot of resources and tools that you can use once you earn certification. They have draft press releases. They've written up, blurbs that you can send out, emails that you can send out to your staff. I've found to do like a quick little summary to provide my clients, hey, during the certification, we discovered that our diversion rate is 60%, or 10% of our employees commute to work with carpool, that kind of little factoids, and then put them out on employee websites or screens throughout the offices, and do a plaque ceremony. Sometimes a lot of clients like to do that, have a little ceremony where they acknowledge that they've earned this plaque. Daniela, I'm sure you've seen a lot of these kinds of things.
Yeah, in my experience, just on Fitwell specifically, the certification does a pretty good job at engaging occupants throughout the certification process and afterwards. For example, there are a lot of features that are based on signage, which explain the evidence behind some of the design features that are in place, and encouraging tenants or occupants in one way or another to have a healthier lifestyle in the office or in the space. So that is through signage, that is through policies that might be required to be disseminated to occupants, surveying, and obviously there's the physical plaque that goes on the space, which is just a reminder to everybody that they're entering a space that has been designed with a little bit more thought and intention.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure there's other venues that we can think of once we get the certification. All right. Well, we're at the end of our time frame, and before we sign off on the meeting, I want to let everybody know that the next Energy Sustainability Resiliency Committee event is going to be October 15th. We are taking the summer off. We do work hard with this. The topic is going to be coordinating and implementing smart